If you have a parent that you feel is a little wobbly and could benefit from using a walker or a cane, but they're a little resistant, we're bringing in Alison Starkey today, who is a physical therapist. She's the CEO of Gateway of Charlotte, North Carolina. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Kim, for the invitation. Glad to be here.
I know personally, I would feel much better if my mom was using a walker just to give her some stability, and she's not really that keen on the idea. What do we do if we have parents who we feel could benefit from that and maybe are just resistant to it?
Well, the problem with canes and walkers is that only old people use them. So when you have an active adult as a parent, there is always going to be a lot of resistance. I don't need it. I'm fine. I don't know what you're talking about. If you see your parent having some balance issues, and very often what we'll see is that someone will kind of cruise around furniture. So they'll get up from their chair, they'll take a little longer standing up, and then they'll kind of grab a hold of the furniture as they go by. Certainly in the kitchen, they'll grab a hold of the counter while they're doing something else just to stabilize themselves. And that's a sure sign that someone's having a balance problem, or certainly they're not confident standing. If you can get them to their doctor, the doctor can refer them to a physical therapist for a full evaluation. And I think that's, the best way, because it's always better coming from someone else than your child that they need a walker or a cane. Because, essentially you don't know anything, and I know more than you because I'm the adult. And parents can be very resistant to recommendations from their children. Just so you know, my parents are very resistant
Yes.
as well. So, and I've been doing this for a very long time. So
Yes.
having an independent person share that information is an easy way to get out of it. And I would highly recommend that you go that route. If you feel like your parent might be open to it, certainly there's some different types of canes. I think the ones that you get in the hospital are a little bit kind of clinical looking, if you will. And there are some nicer canes out there. There are a number that have a little wobbly foot on the bottom, which is great if you're going on any type of uneven ground. Certainly, the other thing that I tell seniors is that if you have a cane and you're in a public place, like you go to the mall, people subconsciously give you further room so that nobody's going to run by you and knock you, which could knock you over. So, just carrying a cane out in public is always a good idea if you're not so steady.
Oh, gotcha. Right. Because somebody's going to kind of put a warning area around you, if you will,
That's
and you're not
exactly
just left.
right.
Yeah,
And
that makes, I hadn't thought
if
of it that way.
you see somebody with crutches or a cane at the mall, everybody just immediately walks by them subconsciously. It's not even something
Sure.
you think about. You just give them an extra berth, if you will.
Sure. Is there a reason why, is there any reason why you would want somebody not to use a cane or a walker? I would imagine that once you start using it, you become a little bit more dependent on using it. So you want to continue. Is there any reason why you wouldn't want an older adult using a cane or a walker?
So there are very few instances where we wouldn't recommend. The thing with a cane is that if somebody really needs a walker and they're trying to use a cane, it might actually, make the situation deteriorate. As far as being dependent on it, that's certainly not our experience.
Okay.
So if you have someone that's sitting down a lot because they're scared of getting up and walking, or they're scared of falling, they'll actually be able to do an awful lot more with the appropriate device. So they'll actually gain strength because they'll be more confident getting up and moving. So they will get up and move during the day. There are a couple of instances where I don't feel it's appropriate. If you have someone with mild to moderate dementia, learning a new task may actually be quite difficult. If in the house you do have a number of rugs, or you have changes in the types of flooring, like from hardwoods to carpet or to tile or to lino, or whatever the case may be, or if you have higher thresholds that you may need to lift the walker over or lift the cane over, people with moderate dementia may not have the capacity to be able to learn how to do that. So they end up carrying the walker, and the walker actually becomes a hazard in itself. So again, very important to have a physical therapist evaluate the situation, check that they're safe with the device, check that the device itself is safe, that it has the appropriate rubber stoppers on the bottom, that it's the correct type of device. And then more importantly than anything else, that it's the right height, because I see a lot of people with walkers up here and I see a lot of people with walkers down here. So
Right.
it's very important to get that prescription from a physical therapist.
Okay. And that's something that you can do through their primary care doctor.
Absolutely.
Okay. How do you have those conversations? Because as you mentioned, that most very, very many independent people, and my mom being one of them, just thinks, oh, I'm fine. But it makes me really nervous sometimes. And, or, I just know she's not getting around in the way that she could. What are there any things that we can say to them that might help them feel like it's okay? I do feel like, at least in where my mom lives in an independent living, there's a lot of people with walkers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe the stigma of that is lessened because, like what you mentioned, it allows you to get out and do things and feel more confident in doing it. But what are those things that we could potentially say that might help get their attention and make them more open to it, besides it being coming from the doctor?
Well, I think with walkers, there's a lot of variety available on the market, and there are a number of walkers that have integrated baskets.
Hmm.
And I think that, if you have someone who, likes to carry their purse around the house, or they like to take tea from the kitchen into the living room to watch TV or something, that having something that you can actually, put a drink on a surface and then push it, as opposed to trying to carry it, especially if you're a little unsteady, I think that
Hmm.
could be quite appealing.
Hmm.
They come in all different types of colors. And so, you can choose your favorite color, or maybe your favorite football team color. So I think there are ways to kind of, ease people into the thought of it. The other thing that I recommend is that you just have one for open spaces. Like if you go for a walk in the mall, why don't you
Hmm.
just try it in here? Let's see how it feels.
Hmm.
Very often you'll see people in the grocery store that
Hmm.
really need a walker, but they're very happy to push the grocery cart. Like that feels better. And
Yes.
that's a sure sign. Like if it's easier for you to walk and push the grocery cart, then maybe you would benefit from a device.
Gotcha. So I think the idea is for us as adult children to sort of be keeping our eyes open for some of the
Mhm.
things that you mentioned, like the cruising on the furniture or the grocery store kind of dependence on the cart. And then thinking of, is this a conversation that I can bring up that they might be open to, or should I get the primary care doctor involved so that we can bring in a physical therapist to help us figure out best next steps for them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Some physical therapy in some states, you don't need a doctor's prescription, and certainly you can pursue that. In some
Okay.
states, you do have to have a prescription. So just important to Google that for your particular area. And I think that would
Okay.
be helpful.
Awesome. And I think approaching it from the standpoint of this, in some ways, allows some extra independence, perhaps.
Yes, absolutely. You're going to be able to do so much more and go see your friends and go out for lunch and all those sorts of things and be safe.
Yeah.
Um, and I think also if they do have a friend that's using a cane or a walker, well, you've never said anything about them, surely, it's okay. And again, just really kind of using that, I want you to be safe. The last thing I want is for you to have a fall and end up injured.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's figuring out what will appeal to them and what will hopefully get them to take
Absolutely.
action
And
in the
everyone,
ways that,
everyone's a little different, and
yeah.
what your relationship with your parents is.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing some tips and tricks on, not tricks necessarily, but tips on the ways that we can potentially approach this subject and hopefully help keep our parents as safe as possible. So thanks so much for being with us.
Well, thanks, Kim. And I just wanted to say one more thing. It's Physical Therapy Month this month,
Oh,
and we're celebrating physical therapy across the country. So happy Physical Therapy Month, and thank you for the opportunity.
all right. Well, if you have any other topics you'd like us to discuss, let us know. Parenting aging parents.